Thanks for joining me today at Learnwake. My name is Brandon Judd, and I'm responding to a personal coaching session request for analysis here. And the comments and questions that came in along with this request is the trick that it looks like you're working on here is getting toward your flips and spins. And in the comments you said, I would like to clean this up and get higher so that I can begin to work on 180s, 360s, or flips. Perfect. So thank you for submitting this video. We really appreciate that, as well as the comments. Helps me understand kind of where you're trying to go with this. To be honest with you, it looks really good. The strengths are that it looks like you feel really comfortable on your board. It looks like you're really comfortable with speed, with taking impact, all of that stuff on the landing. It looks like you're a pretty confident rider, which I really like in your riding. I think it's going to take you really far in your progression. There are, however, a couple things that I did notice that I think are hanging you up and preventing you from starting to work on your flips and spins. So let's talk about that first, and we can get those things dialed, and then I can show you how to begin trying your first inverts and spins. So first, just for everyone else catching up with us here, I'll just kind of play through one of these jumps here. So come in strong and confident, which is good. It does look like you're not afraid at all, and sometimes with people right at your level, they're kind of tentative on a lot of things that they do, which can prevent progression because they're not willing to kind of test the extremes or test the limits. But it looks like you have no problem there. You look really comfortable out on the water, which is a huge bonus. So, all right, let's go back and analyze this guy here. First of all, we're just going to talk about your heel side stuff first, just this heel side jump first, and because we can find all of your main issues in this heel side jump. So first of all, you are edging out really wide, just a little wider than I would say you need to go. You can obviously go really short and still make it wake to wake if you have the right fundamentals and the right edging position, but for a standard wake jump, this is just a little further than normal. And it just may put you in kind of a bad body position. So speaking of body position, so here's the first thing after that, just kind of little anecdotal, you're edging out too far. Here's one of the main issues. So right here, when you're edging on your toes, your shoulders are in front of your hips. And what this does is this puts you in this sort of folded, broken edging position. And this is a symptom of a flawed toe side edge. And so when you do your toe side wake jumps, you're going to have problems because this is by nature what your toe side edge is doing. So it's not terrible. Most people do this. This is very normal for people to run into. And the reason why is because if you were to, forget wakeboarding for a second, let's say you're just standing on the ground. If you want to walk toward the shore, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to lean toward the shore. The problem with doing that on a wakeboard, well, first of all, on foot, if you're just on foot, you lean toward shore and then you take a step and you catch yourself and then you continue to lean and step, and that's the fundamentals of our walking. But when you try and go this direction on the wakeboard, what happens is your natural body's instincts to lean the direction that you want to go kicks in. But the problem is here you're strapped in, you can't take a step. That's not how it works. In fact, if you were to eliminate the rope, you couldn't really lean anywhere. With the rope, the only direction you can lean is down the line. So leaning this way is not leaning down the rope. And this is why people get kind of uncomfortable and funky here, because when they throw their upper body's mass and momentum toward the direction they want to go, in order to not fall over, they have to throw their hips to counterbalance. So like if we were to draw a line directly down center mass, your shoulders leaning this way unnecessarily is counteracted by your hips being pushed out behind you so that you don't tip over. Yeah, I've seen, a lot of beginner wakeboarders when they start edging toe side, they just edge this, toward shore or edge this way, and they just kind of fall over because they don't know how to lean against the rope. They don't know how to trust that. So it looks like you're back over the tail and you are leaning against the rope, but there's still some of that old habit of your upper body leaning the direction you want to go and then being counteracted by your hips being pushed out. The problem with this is you become a shock absorber in this bent position. If you were trying to, jump on a trampoline like this, you'd be relying on your muscle structure to keep you from bending. But in reality, when we stand tall, we need our bone structure to keep us from bending. Think of it this way: would you trust a supporting beam in your house to be bent like this, and stand on top of it? The problem is it's asking to buckle here in the middle where you're hinging. So long explanation for a short answer is push your hips forward. Excuse me. So when you push your hips forward, it's actually this drill here. This is the way to get yourself to do it. So go onto Learnwake and search for this drill, toe side leverage drill. And that toe side leverage drill, you'll notice Kurt showing the position that you're in right now. Granted, he'll have two hands on the handle if he was mimicking your position. And then this is the position that you want to be in. So your hips actually lead in front of your shoulders here, whereas here the position similar to where you're in is your shoulders are in front of your hips. It's really weird and counterintuitive because like leaning back against the rope to go this way sort of feels backwards. But it really, really works. So you'll see in the video that demonstrated a bunch, you'll see how much better and stronger it makes his edge. And he does this by obviously letting go with one hand and forcing his body in the right position. Because if you let go with this hand in the wrong position, it will sort of twist you and untwist you. So watch that video, very valuable for you on your toe side edging. And now let's go back to your heel side jump, right? So we haven't even gotten to the jump. This just shows me some stuff on your toe side that we can accomplish here instead of there. So every time you edge out on your toes in preparation for a heel side jump, you're practicing your toe side edge. So practice it with your hips forward. All right, so the next thing is another hip issue. So you start edging in, and again, not to repeat myself too much, but on your heels, you're doing the same thing where you want to go into the wake, and so you use your upper body to start edging in toward the wake. Lean where you want to go when you're walking, but not when you're wakeboarding. So if you look at the angle here, your board is far behind your shoulders. That just puts you a little off balance, and the nose of the board gets really low because you're leaning really far over the nose. If you look at your center mass, how much further over the nose of the board it is. So again, that goes back to the root of that. Just remember, lean against the rope. But the other major issue here is we need to get your hips forward because you're not really standing fully tall with your hips. So you'll see in here your arms are kind of glued to your sides and your hips are behind you a little bit. What this does is it prevents you from being all the way tall when you're edging. If you're not all the way tall, you're going to absorb some of the pressure that the water is putting against your board. Like if you were on a trampoline and someone double bounced you and you tried to kill the bounce because you weren't ready for it, you would break at the waist and break at the knees and absorb that. So that's kind of what you're doing, whether or not you realize it. So I would just say relax a little more, keep your shoulders back, and push your hips forward. One of the ways to practice this is actually this drill here. Sorry, not that one. This one. So go to Learnwake and search heel side jumps, the standing tall drill. This is specifically focused on your knees, but you can adapt it to your hips. So anytime they talk about like straightening your knees all the way, think also about pushing your hips forward and locking that out. So the two muscles that you're going to be flexing when you stand tall is your quads are going to help push your knees back, and then your glutes are going to help push your hips forward. So if you flex your quads and your glutes at the same time while standing tall, that will help you kind of force stay in that locked position. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, watch this video. You'll see the differences, and it will make everything make a little bit more sense. So he'll stand nice and tall, and then you'll see the difference between. So I think this is the first one here is a not tall wake jump, and he kind of cases the wake like you do a bit. And then the second one, he stands all the way tall, same edge, but gets way more pop out into the flats. And then the drill essentially is, doing some squats and forcing your hips and your legs nice and tall and straight. So that I would definitely recommend that drill. I think that will help you a ton. So we have a drill for your toe side and a drill for your heel side as far as your body position at the wake. I think those two are crucial to help you stand nice and tall on both your heel side and your toe side. So those are the key. All right, so now here's the next part, and I did mention a couple things on, edging in with your shoulders, leaning the right direction, and then the width of your edge. So just as a refresher, you're not doing very bad at this, but if I'm being nitpicky, here's your refresher. Go to this video, toe side jumps, the perfect setup. This covers like how your momentum shift should be when you edge out on your heels and begin edging back in on your toes for a toe side jump, common problems and ways to fix that for a nice consistent toe side pop. So there's a drill, toe side jumps, the perfect setup, and then the opposite one, heel side jumps, the perfect setup. It's essentially the same thing, just applied both to heel side and to toe side, because there are definitely some differences there. But we just want to get you nice and comfortable. So just kind of as a reminder here, so take a look at this jump. Look how tall he stands with his hips. So you can come in kind of like that, not a problem. But then when you stand tall at the wake, if I can pause it right. Sorry, it's hard to get these sometimes. Right there. Nope. Well, you saw it. Yeah, so his hips come forward and get really tall at the wake, and that's going to be crucial for you. So again, heel side jumps, the perfect setup, toe side jumps, the perfect setup. Both of those are going to help you a ton. And again, it's just little nuances with the edge in. And the reason that's important for your progression is if you can get those very consistent, the same every time, then you're not going to have a problem being able to take these tricks to the next level, because the variables have been removed. They're the same. They're the same no matter what. When it comes to your approach, you always can control that, and your approaches aren't wildly different, which throw you off. All right. Next thing for progression, we're going to move on toward some of the 360 stuff, and then we'll talk about flips. All right. So one thing I would recommend you doing every time you start riding is called the ultimate warm-up. I would watch this video. It goes through all the different ways to improve your riding without actually really working on something. This is something that gets compounded over time. I know that sounded like a really vague sentence a second ago, but the reason I say that is it's not like you're working on one trick at a time, just beating yourself up on that same trick over and over and over. But instead, it's just a little routine you do every time that you ride, and that little routine eventually compounds on itself. And after one season of you doing this every single time you ride, you'd be surprised at just how much this helps you feel comfortable on all edges of your board in all ways and everything. That's going to help you set up. I want you to do it regular and switch, and it's going to help you set up for all your different takeoffs and landings for your spins and eventually your inverts as well. So very important. I would watch this and do it religiously. All right, so that being said, the next thing that we're going to work on is called getting into the cuffed riding position. Before you can do a 360, You need to be able to learn how to get and be cuffed, because you could do a 360 in the air and try to get cuffed for the first time ever. But the question is, why would you do it in the air at a very high risk, scary environment for the very first time? Instead, you can do it with slow speeds, just on the surface, and practice it a couple times. It takes an investment mentally because it feels like you're not like working on your new trick, but it really pays off in every way. So I would practice getting cuffed and kind of go through the 360 on the surface, just play around with that, have fun with it. It's a really, really easy position to get into, despite what it looks like or what you may tell yourself. But it will help you a ton when it comes to your landings, obviously like this one. There's really not much to it outside of tricking your brain. So I would recommend working on that before you try 360s, and then simultaneously you can also work on this. It's called heel side front side 180 progression ladder. This will get you set up to do some heel side front side 180s, which is obviously a prerequisite to a heel side front side 360. So I think you need to start riding switch a lot, getting cuffed, riding cuffed a lot, as well as some of the drills that I worked on for your jumps. Once you get there, you'll be able to, if you can land and ride away switch, and even take off switch and land your normal stance, this will set you up, because on for example, a heel side back roll, which we'll talk about here in a second, a heel side back roll, for example, has a lot of natural front side rotation in it that needs to be somewhat canceled out. So if you can't do a 180 or ride switch at all, then we're going to have a hard time correcting for that in the air for a back roll, for example. So I would recommend starting with cuffed stuff and 180s, and then once you've gotten there, then we can work on some 360s. You can start getting that direction. You can work on some back rolls, and when you work on your back roll, I would recommend this video, low impact heel side back roll progression. Super weird and awkward and uncomfortable because you're going to be doing like an air trick, but even if you don't successfully do it, just finding that pop is going to go a long way into helping you understand how it works at the wake. And even some people who I coach who are really close on their back rolls, sometimes I'll take them back to the air back roll and it will fix their problem, and then they go back to the wake version and they land it right away. So it's a lot easier to start learning how to get upside down this way with a little bit mellower environment. So the next one is tripping and tantrum, and this can be swapped out for the back roll if you feel more comfortable doing backflips. Like a trampoline backflip is pretty similar to this. So go on Learnwake and search for tripping and tantrum, and you can watch this. If you feel like you're ready to start doing backflips, this is the place to start. And honestly, it's really, really easy steps. Tantrum seems kind of daunting for a lot of people who first try it, but the way that this drill takes you through a whole bunch of incremental steps makes it broken up into bite-sized pieces that are really easy to swallow. So I would go there if you're feeling tantrum, but essentially going back to here, your number one focus, if I need to prioritize them, because I know I just gave you a ton of information, first thing I would do is I'd correct your body positions at the wake, and those are done through those drills, the toe side edging drill I showed you and the standing tall drill that I showed you. From there, you're going to want to also combine those positions with the toe side and heel side jump perfect setups video. Once you understand that and how to do that, I would also insert the perfect warm-up. So with those three parts, the body position, the edge into the wake, and the perfect warm-up, if you do that for a few times consistently, you'll already feel things starting to work itself out, and you'll get more comfortable. And then you can start working on some of the cuffed drills, the 180 drills. Once those feel somewhat okay, even if you get a little hung up on it, not a problem, you can start working on some surface 360s and some air back rolls or one-wake back rolls or the tantrum reentry drill, and you can go from there. But yeah, I think that's a good path for you, just based on the very little that I've seen here. I think that that will help you go wake to wake consistently and not feel too stuck anymore. A lot of people will try and ride and just perfect their straight air jumps all the time, and that can actually hurt them more than help them. So don't be afraid to start trying some of the cuffed stuff and some small one-wake 180s before you have a perfect wake jump. I find that the perfect wake jump often comes after you've been riding around switch and doing some ollies and reentries and carving around like that the ultimate warm-up. Again, I think I like your confidence. I think everything else is going to fall into play when you practice some of those drills. And thanks again for submitting the video. We hope that helps, and we hope to see you on here in the future.